0 hours, 0 minutes, and 0 seconds. My name is Leah and I am 32 years old. At 8:14 in the morning, my phone buzzed against the granite countertop. It wasn't a greeting. It was an eviction notice from my own mother. We changed the locks on the lake house. The text read, "We no longer trust you." The timestamp showed it arrived exactly 3 minutes after my automatic transfer of $2,000 had cleared their account. Before I could even process the audacity, a notification popped up from my sister Brooke. A photo of her smiling in the living room I paid for with the caption, 0 hours, 0 minutes, and 35 seconds finally. A sanctuary without negative energy. Drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. I'd love to know who's part of our community. I didn't throw the phone against the wall. I didn't scream into a pillow. Those reactions belong to people who still believe their grief might change the outcome. I didn't have that luxury. Instead, I opened my laptop and clicked on a file I had named with zero sense of irony. The Family Trust. It wasn't a legal document. It was a spreadsheet, a 0 hours, 1 minute, and 8 seconds forensic accounting of my own stupidity. I sat in my 600 feet apartment, the air smelling faintly of the generic instant noodles I ate 4 nights a week. I looked around at the furniture I had scavenged from thrift stores, the coffee table with the wobbly leg, the curtains I had hemmed myself because custom ones cost too much. I lived like a college student so that my parents could live like retirees with a pension they never earned. 400 miles away, they were currently drinking wine on a deck that my overtime pay had built. Looking out 0 hours, 1 minute, and 42 seconds over a lake I was now barred from visiting. I scrolled back to the beginning. Month 1, $2,000. That was 4 years ago. My father, Frank, had called me, his voice heavy with a performative shame that I now recognized as a sales tactic. He said they were going to lose the legacy. He said he just needed a bridge until his investments paid off. There were no investments. I was the investment. I traced the columns down. Month 12, the boiler incident. I remembered that month vividly. I had a toothache that throbbed 0 hours to minutes and 18 seconds like a second heartbeat in my lower jaw. The dentist told me I needed a root canal. It would cost $1,000 to $100. 2 days later, my mother called frantic. The lake house boiler had died. They were freezing. They were old. How could I let them suffer? So I swallowed for ibuprofen, canceled my dental appointment, and wired $5,000 for a new heating system. I lost the tooth 3 months later. It was cheaper to pull it than to save it. I ran my tongue over the gap in my mouth now. A permanent physical receipt for their comfort. For 0 hours to minutes and 54 seconds years, I had asked myself why I did it. Why I let them bleed me dry while I clipped coupons. Looking at the numbers, the answer finally crystallized cold and sharp. It wasn't duty. It was a survival mechanism. I had trapped myself in the invisible logic of the unloved child. When you grow up knowing you aren't the favorite, you learn to become the necessary. You learn that affection is a transaction and presence is a privilege you have to rent. I had convinced myself that utility was a form of security. I thought that if I made myself expensive 0 hours, 3 minutes, and 29 seconds enough to replace, they couldn't afford to discard me. I thought I was buying my seat at the Thanksgiving table. I thought I was paying insurance against abandonment. It is a subtle, terrifying chain that you forge yourself link by checkbook link, believing it is a lifeline when it is actually a leash. I had spent 32 years trying to purchase a love that Brooke got for free just by existing. But the transaction was fraudulent. They had cashed the checks, but they had never delivered the goods. They had accepted my money for this 0 hours for minutes and 1 second month. $2,000 sent just yesterday. Knowing full well the locksmith was already on his way, they waited for the transfer to clear before they fired me. I looked at the bottom of the spreadsheet. $11,000. That wasn't a gift. That wasn't family support. That was a venture capital investment in a failing business. And when a business takes your money and locks you out of the building, you don't cry about it. You audit them. My sadness evaporated, replaced by a clarity so absolute it felt like a drop in temperature. I didn't want their love 0 hours for minutes and 36 seconds anymore. I wanted a refund. I closed the spreadsheet and opened the county records database. If they wanted to talk about ownership, we were going to look at the deeds. I logged into my banking portal. My cursor hovered over the recurring transfer labeled Family Support. I didn't hesitate. I didn't feel a pang of guilt. I clicked Cancel. The screen refreshed, confirming that the next payment scheduled for the first of the month would never arrive. It felt like cutting a wire on a bomb. The silence in the apartment deepened, but for the 0 hours 5 minutes and 10 seconds first time, it didn't feel empty. It felt safe, but canceling the payment was just the tourniquet. I needed to see the wound. I opened a new tab and navigated to the county clerk's public records database. If they had changed the locks, they asserted ownership. But I had been paying the mortgage directly for 4 years. I typed in my father's name, Frank Henderson. The search results populated instantly. There it was, the most recent document filed 6 months ago. A quick claim deed. I downloaded the PDF, my eyes scanning the 0 hours 5 minutes and 45 seconds legalese until I hit the only lines that mattered. Grantor, Frank and Patricia Henderson. Grantee Brooke Henderson. Consideration $1. The breath left my lungs in a sharp hiss. They hadn't just locked me out today. They had given the house to Brooke half a year ago. For 6 months, I had been paying the mortgage on a property my parents didn't even own anymore. I had sent $12,000 into a black hole while Brooke played homeowner on my dime. This wasn't just familial ingratitude. This was theft. This was fraud. They had 0 hours 6 minutes and 20 seconds solicited funds for an asset they had already liquidated. I sat back, the cold light of the laptop screen illuminating my small thrifted kitchen table. I had been playing the role of the beautiful daughter, sacrificing my own comfort to secure their retirement while they were actively stripping me of assets. I wasn't a partner in this family. I was the mark in a long con. My phone buzzed on the table, startling me. It wasn't a text from my parents demanding an explanation for the canceled transfer. It was a message from my Uncle Gerald. 0 hours 6 minutes and 53 seconds. Gerald was my father's younger brother, a man who usually sat quietly at the end of the table, nursing a beer and saying nothing. We rarely spoke. I unlocked the phone. There was no greeting, just a video file and a single line of text. You needed to see this. Stop paying. I pressed play. The video was shaky, filmed surreptitiously from lap height under a dining table. I recognized the tablecloth, the expensive linen one I had bought my mother for Christmas 2 years ago. The audio was loud, a cacophony of silverware clinking and 0 hours 7 minutes and 28 seconds laughter. It was a dinner party I hadn't been invited to. The camera angled up slightly, capturing my father, Frank, red-faced and beaming, holding a wine glass. She's reliable. I'll give her that. My father's voice boomed through my phone speakers like a good little cash cow. Laughter rippled around the table. I recognized Brooke's high-tinkling giggle. Don't be mean, Frank, my mother's voice chimed in, though she didn't sound scolded. She sounded amused. She's useful. She knows she doesn't really fit in with us, so 0 hours 8 minutes and 4 seconds she pays her dues. It's how she feels included. Let her write the checks. It keeps her busy. Brooke leaned into the frame, swirling her drink. I honestly don't know why she thinks she's saving the legacy, she said, smirking. She's so desperate to be the hero. It's kind of pathetic, but hey, at least the renovations are covered for next year. The video cut to black. I stared at the dark screen, my reflection staring back at me, pale and frozen. A whisper campaign. That's what this was. For years, I had sensed a distance, a 0 hours 8 minutes and 40 seconds coldness that I tried to bridge with money and service. I thought I was earning my way back into the fold. But they weren't distant because they were struggling. They were distant because they were laughing at me. They had created a narrative where I was the cold, desperate outsider trying to buy affection, while they were the benevolent family tolerating my presence as long as the checks cleared. They didn't just steal my money. They stole my dignity. They sat eating food I likely paid for in a house I was keeping 0 hours 9 minutes and 11 seconds warm, mocking the very sacrifice that made their comfort possible. I looked at Uncle Gerald's text again. You needed to see this. Stop paying. He was the unexpected ally, the crack in their wall of silence. He had broken the family code to hand me the weapon I needed. My hands, which had been shaking an hour ago, were now perfectly steady. The sadness was gone, burned away by a white-hot realization. I wasn't dealing with family. I was dealing with parasites. And you don't negotiate with parasites. You exterminate them. I saved the video, 0 hours 9 minutes and 49 seconds. I backed it up to the cloud. Then I opened a new folder on my desktop. I named it The Audit. If they thought I was just a cash cow, they were about to learn what happens when the livestock breaks down the fence. I didn't sleep. I worked. I am a logistics coordinator by trade. My job is to organize chaos, to track shipments across oceans, to ensure that every container is accounted for and every tariff is paid. I know how to follow a paper trail. I know how to build a manifest. So that is what I did. I treated my family like a failing 0 hours 10 minutes and 23 second supply chain. I opened a fresh document and began to compile the evidence. I didn't just drag and drop files. I cured a narrative of exploitation. I started with the bank statements highlighting every transfer to my father Fr.